Hey, sorry, guys.
Dude, don't worry. I'm stoked to be talking to you.
Bummer we didn't get to meet in person, but I'm glad we're making it happen now.
Yeah, dude, I'm hyped.
Welcome to Season 3 of the fucking Rad Snowboard Podcast.
Okay, perfect. 1 second, please.
Tala in ett meddelande efter tonen.
Hi, this is Sean. I'm not here right now.
You have reached Mike.
Hi, this is Jim. Leave me a message, and I will call you back as soon as I can.
Hi, you've reached Jeremy Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to call you back in 10. Sorry, dude.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the show where we talk to interesting snowboarders. It's the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Charlson. This week's show features Jeremy Jones, backcountry Jeremy Jones. And it's a pretty long interview and we cover a lot of ground. I really loved talking to him. It was super fun and I'm going to just throw to the show. So I just talked to Mark Fawcett for one of these.
I love it, man. I want to send me the link when that comes out.
Yeah, I will for sure. That guy's amazing. He basically gave me the lowdown on the academy where you guys both attended. You would have been younger than him, obviously.
Yep.
How did you come to train there? And maybe before that, what was your first board? Like, where did you first snowboard?
Well, my first board was Burton Backhill. That was basically saw it at the basement of the general store in Still, Vermont, and was like, I need to have that. I had seen some pics. I think maybe in Thrasher started doing some pics of like a small little picture I think I saw, but so ended up getting that board for Christmas, floundered around in my backyard on it, basically built a little wedge and did every trick I ever dreamed of on a skateboard and like the first day out. So loved it, you know, and then they had this program where you could trade in that board and get next year's board for more money. So I kept trading up for about 3 or 4 years. And then the Burton Cruiser came out, and that was the first board that I had seen with edges. We'd actually had high backs prior to that, but we didn't have ratchets. They were kind of like these backpack buckles. And so I traded, my brothers were on a similar program. We had 3 boards, and then when the Cruiser came out, it was so expensive. I ended up, my brothers weren't there, and I'm like, I traded everything in to get this one Cruiser, and they were not happy. But that put a dent into their snowboard trajectory. Probably slowed them down about 10 years.
Oh, God. Was it the Cruiser with the swallowtail, or was it the square tail one?
Yeah, it was the Cruiser with the swallowtail with the metal skegs.
Yeah.
I mean, we were taking the metal skegs off. When the Cruiser came, I was still like you could not make a turn on hard snow. I'd go to the resort after it closed, this kind of small bunny hill, and we would do like straight runs and no one could turn for a long time. I thought when I got the Cruiser, I was going to turn right away. I was super frustrated. Kind of my low point up till that point. And I remember just it was getting dark out. I remember it vividly, and I'm like, well, you know, I'm thinking like, what do I do? Do I trade this back in and get the old board back? This thing doesn't work, and it was bigger and it was heavier to carry. It was a 165. I was like 11 years old, and higher than I had gone, and I was just totally deflated. I was by myself, and then I dropped in kind of higher than where I could basically straight run and still hold on because we knew what that spot was. Got up to speed, and I don't know what happened, but for some reason I put my weight on my front foot, kicked out the back foot, lifted up the edge, made a turn, followed by another turn, link turns all the way to the bottom, and actually broke a buckle getting my feet out of the board because I was so jacked up to run back up and do it again.
Oh, that's awesome. Once you've got that feeling, I guess the academy is high school aged?
Yeah, 9th grade. Yeah. So then after that, so I kind of be like, I'd ski in the day, come home, and then build our jump and snowboard in the backyard. And we had these little POW stashes, and we always could ride POW, no problem, making turns. Like there was one hill that we loved that was like 4 turns that went down to a tennis court. Simple, like 200-foot hills. Then I started coming home at like lunch and hiking and spending the whole afternoon and into the evening hiking and making turns on hard snow. Our house was like in between a cross-country center and this little corner section of Stowe, Vermont. And then it was allowed on the mountain. I was the first person, just by chance, but like the first morning of the first day, it was allowed to snowboard on. I was there, and you had to get certified. And I think it was Bud Keene was the one who certified me, or Bud and this other guy, Lowell Hart, were two guys that were like the first ever instructors there. And then I basically, like, that's when hockey went away. I was really into hockey. Quickly was over hockey and snowboarding first year to last year, no matter what the conditions were. And I think, I always loved sports and always was like, I'm going to be a pro athlete. And as every kid does. If it was hockey season, I played hockey, which hockey was around the clock, but it was like practice before school, practice after school, come home, go to the basement, take shots on my brother at net. Yeah, it was just, we would live our sports. But snowboarding was a whole nother level of obsession that my parents saw that they were really surprised in.
Well, yeah, I think Mark Fawcett mentioned that maybe your parents called either the school or called him before you went to the academy and were like, he could be a pro hockey player. So if this academy is not going to make him a pro snowboarder, then... Funny thing, I remember when I first really started riding, and I went to my first contest on, at that point I was riding the Sim Switchblade that was a phenomenal board, and I show up to this race, and it was back when everyone kind of raced and did half pipe. We didn't have a half pipe at this event. In Rosignol, they had a demo truck right there. Their offices were not, it was at Sugarbush, so like a half hour from their office. And like, well, I didn't know Rosignol made snowboards. And the guy's like, these came in, this is the first time we have ever demoed them. And I'm like, can I borrow one for this race? Because my board was haggard. And they're like, yeah, sure, take it. And so I went and demoed the board for the day, and I ended up winning the race. And I came back, and the guy's like, how'd it go? And I told him I won. And he said, man, maybe we can figure out, so you can keep that board. Right.
And he came back and was like, you can keep that board.
Wow, was that the VAS plates and that first year Rossi
yeah,
stuff?
And it was totally, but it was before the VAS plates.
Yeah.
It was an all-black board, but that was the board. It was a prototype of that.
Wow.
And it was a phenomenal board. When that thing came out, it was like, oh, my God. And I don't think I lost a race on that board. Yeah, so that was kind of a whole different level of equipment. But anyways, it was funny because I think about it, I have kids now, and I'm like, I don't remember. And the coaches were calling my parents going, what do you mean he's done with hockey? This is like, we've invested, since kindergarten into this kid, and you're throwing away this for snowboarding. There's no real such thing as a pro snowboarder at that time. There's no industry, and we didn't have any family meetings or anything. There was no hard decision. It's just like, I'm going snowboarding every day. That's, I don't, what hockey's done. Sorry.
Wow.
And yeah, it's funny how just looking back at it now, being the parent, and how hyper analyzed we're like, are you sure you want to give up your soccer or whatever?
Totally.
So yeah, my parents, what happened is my dad's roommate lived at Sugarloaf where the school was.
Right.
And his son was into ski racing, and we had never been to Sugarloaf, and he had heard about Fawcett coming to that school, and he called my dad and was like, you wouldn't believe it, they got a snowboarder going to this school. And I was same age as my dad's friend's kid, and he's like, I can help get him here for the winter semester. And so at that point, it was this school, it was in an old, which Fawcett probably explained, classic school where it was a old inn, everything was done in this inn. The dorm rooms were there, the weight room, the classrooms, the cafeteria, all in this small little room that is in the middle of nowhere. The closest stoplight was an hour from there, and the closest McDonald's. I drove there with my wife, and she's like, we have to be lost. There is no way there is a school here. You go for hours on these roads. It's middle of nowhere. So my parents dropped me off at a bus station, and I headed up to Maine, met Fawcett, and yeah, I'm sure he went into it. But they were classic times because Fawcett and I were can you believe we get to snowboard every day? And just the one story is we remember, and Sugarloaf's still the coldest mountain I've ever been to, but we would ride every day, and we on the really cold days, we'd be like, where are everyone hanging? We don't see anyone. We're like, are they in a lodge or what? And so we would be the only two on the lift, and it would be so cold. And we figured out that they used the lift shacks as warming huts. And so the kids were all in the lift shacks, and so they were watching us, but you couldn't, like, see in the windows, and we never saw anyone move, and they're just like, dude, the snowboarders never get off the hill.
I don't remember your racing career, and don't take that as an insult, because I didn't take any note of racing ever. You raced really, really well, right?
I raced well. Mark Fawcett raced really, really well. Like at a level that at that point there was no North Americans racing at that level. So when I started out competing at 14, we did everything, winning the overall title. That was kind of like Craig's, kind of like saw the like last open where Craig was still doing everything, and even Hawken did everything. And then it got specialized. The racing got gnarly, the half-pipe riding got gnarly, and the Europeans just dominated racing. Fawcett was the only North American who consistently was crushing over in Europe. He had to live in Europe, basically. It was like 25 events were in Europe and 2 were in the U.S. But my race career, I did incredibly well as an amateur. I turned pro when I was 16. I got third at my first pro event. To enter was $150. So it was a big deal. But it paid out to like 32nd place. Like 16 to 32, you'd get your $150 back. And it was at Snow Summit, never been to California, and got third in the race, did the half pipe, got crushed in the half pipe. I'm like, I'm not spending my $150 on that. And did well in North America, kind of a top 5 guy in North America. But on the World Cup, I did not do well. At the best, I was maybe like 20th in the world or something. Nowhere near those guys. So I struggled at the World Cup level. I won a couple of North American races. And it was kind of like just enough money to allow this lifestyle where I got to snowboard every day. I rented a closet in Tahoe. We were all about sleeping in cars and couches. And
who was your crew at that time?
Adam Hostetter, Mark Fawcett, JCJ Anderson.
What was the presentation you did to Congress? How did that come about, and how did you prepare for it, and what did you wind up saying? And how do you feel about how it went?
It's funny. The Congress presentation came about pretty quickly. I spent my whole winter in the Sierra, so really pretty unplugged, just really kind of lost myself in the mountains, which I'd love to do.
This was an all-time year.
Yeah, we had a great year, again, in a different manner. Like for me, it took all year, but finally, man, we are starting to really break new ground. But so anyways, I came out, the executive director of Protect Our Winters is like, Congress through the outdoor industry doing this hearing on the importance of outdoor recreation and the economy, which is something with Protect Our Winters we're always pounding that an unhealthy winter has dire effects on jobs and economy. It came about pretty quick, kind of like a 2-week warning, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to deal with this. I was so immersed in the mountains and just stepped up to it, started writing, got it dialed with some great people at Protect Our Winters.
Let's sidetrack it for just a second. And how did Protect Our Winters get to where it is now?
Yeah, so Protect Our Winters, again, I love when I'm talking to a Canadian because I'm trying to reference everything to Canadian roots, which a lot of my stuff has. So, but anyways, Protect Our Winters was, I've been seeing changes in the mountains. It was really bothering me. And like one of the final straws, I was in Prince Rupert, and I was on a down day. We were filming with Absinthe, and we hiked the local resort. It was grass. I got to be friends with these locals. Hiked it with them. They were like, had all this pride on their home resort. And then I'm like, well, what's up? Why'd it close? And he's like, we don't get snow at this elevation anymore. I'm like, man, this guy's 30 years old and he lost his ski resort. That was kind of like on top of all this other stuff. And although I knew nothing about the intricacies of climate change. I had been seeing it more and more and more. I did know I can start this thing and the mags will get behind it and I can get TGR fired up and I can get other riders and companies. I did know how to rally the industry. I had the connections to the key people, but I'm like, don't do this. And I tried to talk myself out of it for over a year. I'm like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I just couldn't hold back. I saw this like roadmap of like how I would do it. And then I just started moving the ball forward, and it took me a year to get it launched because I'd like wouldn't do anything. And then I'd come back, or I'd meet a lawyer who was a snowboarder and be like, you got to help me with the application. And then I'd meet a web designer and like, can you build me a website? And that's how it started.
Brad, who were the early collaborators?
I mean, I knew from the get-go, I'm like, this can't be a Jeremy Jones foundation. And I was super reluctant. Like when we got ads and mags and stuff, I was like, it can't be me. And I tried to get other companies, like the North Face came on pretty early. My sponsor, Rosignol, wrote the first check for it.
Dope.
Patagonia came on. TGR did some fundraising for it. And so really just reached out to the best people like Auden Schindler. At that time, I was like a leader in the snow sports and still is in my mind with climate change, and was like, hey, I got this organization. Can you sit on the board? And start bringing in people like that. You know, I knew that athletes have this important platform, so reaching out to them from the get-go. Fast forward to today, and we work with over 80 athletes in this Riders Alliance. We have a Science Alliance with the best scientists, really active board of directors, and we're in like 5 different countries now. So, you know, and the goal always is like together we can protect our winners, and we need more of that together.
Brad, okay, so getting back now to you being invited to address Congress. Like after the inconvenient truth, I stopped driving my car, the 15-kilometer commute to the shop where I was working, and just started riding my bike. And I thought, okay, I've got kids. We have to do something. What can we do? When I heard the economic standpoint, like, oh yeah, you can totally sell this to people that are worried about, you know, the bottom line. You can easily monetize how bad this is. Go, you know, you've mentioned the Prince Rupert Resort.
Yeah.
Just go through, you know, country by country. What are we gaining or are we losing resorts? Is snow coming more every year, or is it moving up? What are the precipitations like? And as soon as you look at it through dollars and cents, people are going to start paying attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's been we've noticed that from the get-go, especially like, you know, at Capitol Hill with the elected officials. You know, we've never used the polar bear.
Right.
It's always job, steel. That's the language they speak. Then in a mountain town, I mean, if your mountain's not open for Christmas or, you know, has like one patch of snow, it's not just the ski instructors. I mean, it goes to the families don't have money to have their kid in ballet class. I mean, it goes to everyone, and it actually draws this big ring. And one of our first reports we did on that was...
All right, that was the sound of a call being dropped, and also this week's commercial break cue. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop is Vancouver's premier snowboarding shop. They've got a great selection of the best quality items. Go to boardroomshop.com, enter offer code FNRad10 to save 10% off any regular priced items, or FNRad5 saves you 5% off any sale items at boardroomshop.com. Also go to wiredsnowboards.com. Order yourself a handcrafted amazing snowboard from a really great company run by really great people. I've been riding Wired Snowboards all season, and I love them. I can't say enough good about them. It feels good to have a board that not everybody has, so go to wiredsnowboards.com, use offer code FNRAD at checkout to save 10% off a high-quality, epic board. All right, back to the show.
So we did a report, and we just took New Hampshire as like a sample size. That was really effective. That was cited on the Senate floor to start pushing this economics issue. And so that's something that we've been pushing from the get-go at Protect Our Winter. The exciting thing is we largely have a lot of the solutions. We don't have every little detail worked out, but there's some optimism with the fact that where we were 5 years ago to where we were today from like a technology perspective, we've made huge grounds. And the exciting thing is it is proven to be a serious jobs creator. But this transition is also really difficult. We don't have all those answers how to make this transition from this system we've been on for a long time now to this renewable system.
Right. But the optimism's there because the solutions are going to make people money.
Yeah. The mighty dollar is much more excited right now on renewables than coal. And this last election continues to be a kick in the gut on a daily basis. But the reality is 200 coal plants closed down because it did not make economic sense. And that is the same before the election and today. And renewables are being adopted at a breakneck pace. The sad thing for the U.S. is we could help really accelerate that, and we're doing the opposite. And we're just trying to slow down this inevitable shift that we're on, and we're opening up the door for other countries to pass us up on this. And it's sad, but thankfully the rest of the world is largely making big steps on.
It's one of those things for me that I don't know any Americans that aren't like you. You know what I mean? And everyone's kind of embarrassed.
Yeah.
I guess it's just the circles that I'm lucky enough to know. But I mean, everywhere I go in the United States, I meet the coolest people. Portland, Oregon, anywhere in California. But not only there, Massachusetts, everywhere that I've ever been, there's all these cool people.
You got to look at the map, man. You just named every blue state there is.
Okay.
And that's the same deal. I mean, it's like we're a big country, and what I've tried to learn is through reading books and understanding is what these red states, who are huge Trump supporters, understand what made them. They are a product of our country, and there's a lot of different reasons for it, and the answers are not simple and just divisive is the big problem.
The divide between the two sides has been actively getting bigger and bigger and bigger for so long.
Right.
And you must see that in the snowboard industry, the spokesperson for, what some careless people would be like, fuck that hippie guy.
Oh, yeah. I definitely deal with a lot of hate, but I'm learning how to deal with it. It's something new. I'm not someone who gets excited about confrontation and let's hop on the internet and get in fights. So an optimist.
Yeah, I was surprised how environmentally active Terrier was. He was pretty bitter when he was in Mount Baker. He was like, have all these bins for recycling and everybody's just throwing garbage and everything. It's like, what are you guys doing here? This seems...
Yeah, I can't speak for Hawkins. He's not afraid to speak his mind, which I totally respect. And I do think of Jonathan Moore, for example, especially after this last election, and because I feel like I was snowboarding with Jonathan. We were riding quite a bit together, and he basically went and moved to the coast off the grid and lives this simple carbon neutral lifestyle, and I have the utmost respect for it. And I'm starting to have a lot more envy for it, where I've gone this other way where, I'm still hopping on planes and living this very plugged-in life, even though I do try and take big chunks away from it, but I'm kind of in the throes of society or what you want to call it, and I'm like, man, when can I go and get in that cabin and turn all this stuff off?
Yeah, man. I think we all feel that. There is no moment anymore that we're unplugged. You're out in nature, you're taking pictures, you're Instagramming, you're checking your likes. You're like, this spot that we're hiking to is going to be the best picture ever. Can't wait to see how many likes it gets. It's so much fun. That's the thing about it is it's really nice to be connected.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, so I totally agree. I mean, for me, I do make it, and I get sucked into it like everyone else, and a lot of it is fun, and what you can do with this phone in your hand is incredible. Makes waiting in line no big deal. But I do make a really conscious effort when I go and get into the mountains. I'm not, not be plugged in. I'm in airplane mode and disconnect. And And I'm grateful for that I can be like, I'm out. I'm going to camp for a couple days. And also, thankfully, our mountains just have horrible reception. You can't get online if you want to. I will say, too, I've had, because I like to knock the phone all the time, but I have been where, hey, I got a conference call at 11, and my buddies are going split boarding. I'm like, fuck, I can't go. I got this call, and then it's like, I'll just time the lap and do the call on the skin track. And I try to avoid that, but there's 5 times a year where I am on a call that can't be moved on a skin track, and it was either stay at home or take a call on the skin track. And
incredible.
Hate doing it, but what's funny is all the split boarding and stuff that I'm doing, it has also reinvigorated me on the resort because I'll get in these cycles where I'll go 2 weeks where I don't touch a chairlift, or sometimes 4 weeks, what have you. But to go back and get on a chairlift after hiking around for long periods of time and have no backpack and a small board and enjoy the benefits of a chairlift, it has totally re-stoked me on riding hardpack at the mountain. I don't really mess around too much with powder days because it's so chaotic. But that Tuesday Graybird day when no one's out there and you got the mountain to yourself and a chairlift and a well-tuned board, that's 40 days a year for me for sure.
Rad. Well, let's talk about Jones Snowboards. I guess Rozzy was your first sponsor and sponsor you all the way through until you started that. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. 19 years with Rozzy now.
I don't think most people remember how early Rozzy got into the game. Because by 92, they were on the wall at the boardroom. That prototype that you rode would have been 90 or 91.
I was 89. That's when it was actually.
Other companies like Solomon just didn't sign on until forever after that.
They were very late.
Yeah. Rozzy's from their low end to their high end rode so well.
I couldn't agree more, man.
Yeah. How did you break away from that and start Jones?
At that point, I was split-boarding a ton. When I made the decision, we had shot the first year at Deeper, and I just was not getting the boards that I wanted in the sense of the split boards. They just were not into it. At that point, Rossignol was going through a kind of a reshuffle hard time, and I started looking at some other companies out there and had some interest, but they all were very clear, we're not making a split board and we're not investing in freeride shapes. And at that point, the Banana had come out. I've always been around some skiers. They had these directional rockered skis that I was watching them and firsthand, the first day they were on them and being losing their mind. And it made some just that needs to be my snowboard. And so I just kind of was I knew at that point, and really, to be honest, when I made Deeper, I'm this movie I'm making by myself, for myself. And I think I had no intentions of it being this big event and this really big success. I thought that this small group of people would love it, and great, and so be it, and I'm cool with it. And if this means losing a bunch of sponsors because I'm not filming 5 video parts a year, so be it. I'm 30 years old or something at that time. I think I was 30 at the time, and I'm cool with it. So looking forward, I'm well, I don't want to, who knows how long I'll be a sponsored snowboarder. And I had boards I wanted to make. It comes down to longevity in the sport is if you can move product. And the best way to move product is to have the best boards with the most authentic brand story. And I was fuck, I got to do my own thing. And once again, I tried to talk myself out of it. And then I figured out to the Nideckers, I'm if I team up with these guys, I know I can make the best boards. Having their kind of access to their engineers was the final piece where I'm let's do this, and launched it again, really low expectation. By lunch on the first day of SIA, I didn't even have boards because I got stuck in customs, being wow, I think I underestimated this.
Oh, rad. That's great. Jones happened at this time that was the industry needed something new, but also was like imploding.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that the company had success right off the bat. That's awesome. Has it been a struggle since? Like, are you at a point where...
I'd say I've had a crash course in, like, understanding business and that whole side of things. And there's been late delivery issues and really just kind of learning on the job type stuff. But at the heart of it, and it's been a lot of work, but I really set it up knowing that, like, I am not starting a snowboard company not to snowboard. So been very clear. I am in charge of the boards, what they look like, what the shape is, what they're made of. And not to say I have some amazing people that I work with, but that's where my head is all in on the product and what the consumer has under their feet. And as you can imagine, having that opportunity to design product for snowboarding has just been really a dream come true, and it doesn't feel like work.
Rad.
I just tracked down and got rights to this incredible shot of Craig. It's a 32-second line that he rides in Island Lake Lodge that had a profound impact on my life at the time when I saw it. So, little Craig tidbit that is worked into this pretty artsy film that's based around this poem that I wrote a while back, and it's called Life of Glide, and touches on a bunch of different things, really my path and snowboarding and influences, but present day and the work that I've been doing on specifically this one board that I designed with Chris Christensen, which takes some of the exact curves from surfing that he had learned from Skip Fry, who is one of the first guys to start making the fish. So this whole life cycle of glide is what it's in the works right now. That's amazing. I had a guy from Backcountry Magazine interview me a while ago, like kind of when I was doing, like 10 years ago, kind of right when Deeper was starting. And he was like, where do you think the sport would be if Craig didn't pass? And I had never thought of that. But it would have been much further along on the splitboard front at that point, I can tell you. At that point when Deeper started, Burton had just discontinued their splitboard. And I feel like the loss of Craig, and it really, that question was like, wow, it would be a lot different. It's the real answer if Craig was still around. And I feel like Craig was this great kind of compass for the sport. And when he passed, the sport just became headless and kind of unglued and lost. And like, is that the loss of this, which he was well on his way to be this elder statesman that would drop his wisdom every once in a while, and was just starting to, like, his, the quotes towards the end of his life were, I wrote them down before he died as being like, that's incredible. It is. So yeah, the Craig stuff, and when I mentioned this whole splitboard stuff, Craig was crushing on a splitboard. What he was trying to do, and well on his way with his whole guiding thing. He was walking into these places and to be a guide on a splitboard, and they're like, you're in the wrong room, dude. That is not happening. Yeah. And no, I don't care who you are, great. You were some snowboard freestyle dude, whatever. Little did they know that, of course, what better guy to just be like, well, I want to learn anyways. Don't give me the certificate. Here's my money, like just winning over the hardest people to win over and doing it so rootsy at that point of like, I just want to show people how incredible this feeling of snowboarding is. And I get such a high from that right now that's where my head's at. So rad. For me, that's my medicine, really. That's where I just got back from backpacking with my family, and it's just like, are we going in or are we coming out? Like, in the sense of like, when I'm in the mountains, everything is so much simpler and makes so much more sense to me, and I bumble around out of the mountains, a little bit of a fish out of water. And but I feel so grateful that I have like found this thing in my life that is so achievable for me to go out. I mean, the conditions don't need to be good. There's very low standard for me to go out, and whether it's with my snowboard or even just walking in the woods at this point, I'm getting more and more out of my time in the mountains, and especially with this climate battle and stuff that I face on a daily basis. It's like the mountains are just so important to give perspective and balance on my life.
Rad, man. Well, keep fighting the good fight, please. Keep being an inspiration for, not just snowboarders, just for everybody. It's been really a huge honor to talk to you, man.
Well, I enjoyed it. It was really pleasurable to talk to someone who's been snowboarding from, as long as I have, and that was great. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. It's your passion really comes out when you talk about snowboarding. I love that. It's amazing, dude. Thanks for taking the time, man. You took a lot of time, too.
All right. Well, I'm going to run. Cheers.
FNRad shout-outs to Jeremy Jones this week. Thank you for doing that interview. Also, special thanks to John Thompson and Rob Click for giving us 5-star reviews on our FNRad Facebook page. I've got some band stuff for you guys. And to all of our listeners, follow us on Instagram, leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts or our Facebook page, and make sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, brought to you by BR Productions.
I have to say, I really appreciate your words on the splitboard stuff, and that I, through Deeper, inspired a lot of people. But I truly do believe you kind of stand on the shoulders of the people before you, and guys like Jim Zellers and Tom Bird. And there were some people doing some great stuff on the split front. And literally, to be honest, I think May of this year is the first time that I can look into my home range, which is Jim and Tom's home range, and be like, finally, dude, I think I went to a spot that you've never been. I mean, the range is just littered with first descents by those guys, especially Jim Zellers, that are huge efforts, and he did through the 90s and 2000s. And I'm like working so hard just to get to where he was 15 years ago, and through dialing in my kit to where I can go out for longer periods of time, I'm finally getting back to a layer where Jim's like, well, I never made it that far back. And it's like, God, it took me so long.
That's rad.